Hello everyone, let's go over the portfolio and acceptances for one of my most successful students this year. Please excuse my voice, I'm a little sick today. So as you can see, their acceptances here got into most of their top schools, aside from Yale. Yale was actually their number one choice. Unfortunately, did not get in there, which is weird because their school has a bit of a relationship with Yale, and actually none with Stanford. If anything, it had kind of a negative relationship, which if you go to a famous, pretty small high school, you might be familiar with the types of relationships that your school has with colleges, and you should be aware of that as you apply. So Stanford for this student was actually kind of not random, but we really were not expecting this. And we really were not expecting this either, so it happens. But just anyway, that's something to be aware of. Speaking of small private schools, though, just because you go to a private small high school does not mean you'll get into an Ivy, and vice versa. Just because you go to a large public school doesn't mean you won't get in. School acceptance admissions board go region by region to review applications. When they go to a region, they go school by school. So not only are you competing with other people in your region, you're competing with other students at your school. So the good thing is that if you go to a private, small, famous high school, or even just like a famous high school, doesn't need to be small, you are going to have your application read more thoroughly, but the problem is you'll be competing with other people in your school. And we're going to cover today how this student was able to stand out from the other students at their school, which again, was very competitive. So it's not like it was a walk in the park. Let's go over their test scores. So this student submitted test scores even though it wasn't mandatory, which is a good idea. Doesn't really apply to you though, because it's becoming mandatory again. So whatever. As you can see here, so something important to note, as you can see, there's not a perfect score, but there's a reason for this, which is it doesn't matter. If you get over a 1540, ignore my misspelling there. Again, I have a bit of a fever, sorry. If you get in the mid 1500s or above, most schools count like 1540 or 1550 plus is the same. So a 1580 and a 1550 are not different, so don't stress out. So also this student's school only did unweighted, not weighted GPA. What's great about this though, I'm going to tell you something. Schools do not care about unweighted. They do not care about weighted. They want unweighted. Oh my God, I really cannot spell today. Most schools prefer the unweighted GPA in terms of calculating the GPA that they use like on those scatter plots, because not all schools do weighted. And in fact, a lot of really competitive high schools don't do weighted because they don't want to skew student GPAs like that. So a lot of times it's actually beneficial not to choose to do 5 APs, but to do like 1 or 2 and then just do a bunch of normal classes. It depends though, obviously on, it's always good to do advanced math and science if you can, because that just looks good no matter what. And then obviously do an AP in any course that you're interested in studying, in college. But other than that, you can kind of take it chill. So let's look at their extracurriculars. So this is definitely when they're going through the portfolio, this was probably where the student ranked the highest because of the sheer amount of time, 24 hours weekly, and then a 200-hour certification course to be, I think they're like an ER tech, like they had like a license. So if you can get a license or a credential, it's a great thing. Also notice how 24 hours a week and 200 hours over the summer, what is this very similar to? A job. So if you have a job in high school, you should definitely talk about it in your extracurricular. Under the Common App, I think this would be considered like a pre-career, which also looks good. They like to see that you have a large time commitment. So time commitment is a huge thing. So rather than as you can see, like this student actually didn't do that many. There's like 4 here. It's better to do fewer and just have a huge time commitment for something, especially when you're pre-med. But they still did do service work, which is important. If your school requires volunteer hours, try to do something like start it yourself rather than do one that's run by your school, because again, they'll be going school by school. So what looks more impressive? Somebody like volunteering with just like signing up on a list to do something the school wants them to do, or like forming your own volunteer like thing. Really sorry again for my vocabulary today. I'm very ill. Affinity clubs are always good to participate in. I don't think it was a super high time commitment, but they did mention the like impact that they made, which is important. And this is important too, even though they were not a history or literature applicant. It's always good to, again, differentiate yourself academically from the rest of your class, because again, you're being compared to them. So even though other students at the school did well in history and they all wrote research papers, this student published something, which not many other people did. So I've already gone over a bit about what this got the student in, but just going over, again, schools do not care about unweighted GPA. It's not that deep. I mean, sometimes they do, but not really. Large time commitment, also it was kind of unusual. Again, if you can get a certification or a license, huge deal. And doing anything pre-career, if you have a job, it's great. Another thing is that they were very close with their college counselor. So when you're thinking about recommendations, you're probably thinking about your teachers, which is good. Obviously, you want teacher recommendations that are strong. And you don't get to choose your college counselor, which kind of sucks. But something you may not know is that they're going to write a recommendation for you. And their recommendation is incredibly important because essentially they look at all the students in the school and all the students they're working with. And they don't rank them, but they use certain language to distinguish like the top like 3 or whatever, especially at individual schools. And this college counselor did that for this student. I'm pretty sure. Obviously, I don't have access to that letter, but I can assume it was very strong because of how close they were. So, especially if you're working with a college counselor outside of your school, make sure that you are still on good terms with your college counselor in your school and always defer to them because at the end of the day, they're going to be the ones talking to schools for you. They can also call to get you off wait lists. Or if you apply early and you don't get in, they can call and advocate that you get in. Regular decision. So huge. This is huge. Also, the interviews for this student went very well at Harvard and Stanford. It did not go well at Yale and Princeton. So essentially it went really well at all the acceptances and didn't do well here. So the most likely story is that this student was kind of like on the edge for whatever reason, whether it was they just like, I don't know. I mean, I think they're pretty impressive, but there's like 50,000 people applying. So they were kind of here, right? If this is the cutoff, I'm guessing they were literally right here, but their interview score, which the student is going or basically talked to their interviewer once they got in, and the interviewer told them like, yeah, I gave you the highest score out of all the people I've interviewed in like 5 years. So that really bumped the student up. So make sure you're practicing for your interviews. It's pretty easy to do interview practice. A lot of college counselors do it. I do it on my Fiverr if you're interested. It's just good to essentially bond with the interviewer and show that you would be a good person to work with, like professionally. You just want to seem mature and professional.